Good evening, bee people. I'm here at in the apiary. We're going to talk a little bit about what got me started into beekeeping about 5 years ago, which is the Flowhive. If you Google Flowhive, you'll see exactly what it is, why it was created. It was actually an invention from many years ago that a group in Australia had relooked at the patent, redesigned it a bit, and sort of kind of took the beekeeping community by storm. And we actually bought this as our first colony, or first hive, and before we had bees, before we even knew what we were doing. And this was the first way we thought you kept bees. I can tell you that I've learned a lot in the last 4 to 5 years. And by managing, somewhere in the neighborhood of upwards to 40 colonies, and coming from that original colony, I've learned a lot. Learned a lot about bees and beekeeping and what's appropriate, what you do, why letting the bees tell you how they want to operate, and not telling the bees how you want them to operate. So, in looking at this bee colony here, this flow hive, this is really just a flow super. The bottom of the actual hive, which you'll see in a minute, is just a traditional brood box with deep frames, and that's where your queen and your brood are laid. That's where she lays her eggs. And this box up top is separated by a queen excluder, traditional queen excluder. A couple things about this, a lot of people like the fact that you can open up and view the bees inside. The purpose of this actual invention was really to try to create ease of extraction for beekeeping. It was really designed to take the traditional way of beekeeping, which is your frames with inside, and you usually cut the cappings off, drain out the actual honey inside, put your frames back, and continue. But that's, the people who created it had come up with an ingenious idea that if you look at these frames, they're set up, they're plastic frames, they're individual pieces. Here you can see they're strapped together. And if you look on the edge, you can see the honey within the capped combs. The combs are plastic. They do finish off a little bit of wax and cap it with wax. But the point of this frame is that you can open up the cap in the top, put a crank in, which separates the honeycomb in the middle. So imagine if this is a honeycomb, it separates it just slightly, and the honey drains down to the bottom reservoir down here. It's pretty ingenious, the concept, but the point of it was to create the way so that you didn't have to disturb your bees. One big problem with that is, as a beekeeper, you realize you need to disturb your bees. I mean, naturally you need to give them their time to do what they do, but you've got to monitor them to make sure there's no pests, make sure they're not going to swarm, the health of the colony. So the concept and the purpose for this, the use case, was really kind of misled or misguided. I learned that over the few years, and now I traditionally, as you saw in many videos on my channel, on Facebook, and other social media, use a traditional Langstroth hive with the removable frames. You can remove these frames and you continue to use them, but I will tell you that what you just saw was the most amount of honey that I've ever stored. I've never harvested from this. They've always seemed to not complete fillet, so I never harvested it. I keep putting it on year after year. I put it away in the winter, freeze it and put it back in the spring and hope that they finish filling it up. So there are about 3 nectar flow seasons of honey within here. So it's going to be good honey once we eventually harvest it. It's just not really, with the time frame in our season for nectar flow, what they traditionally do to try to build these combs up from their plastic foundation. They just don't put as much effort into it like they do traditional frames, thus not putting enough effort to fill them with the nectar and honey and really giving us an opportunity to harvest the honey at the end of the season. So, one of the things we're going to do today is we're going to actually take a look at putting this back on a colony for this spring. This is now the 4th year that I've had this, and we're going to see if we can get the bees to fill it up this year. I'd say we're probably about 60% full going to get it on really early this year. I have an overwintered colony that's strong in that particular size hive box, and we're going to see what we can do with it. So let's see what we can do. We'll put this on and we'll let the bees do their work. Okay, now we're back and we've got our colony here. This is the box that we use for the Flowhive. There's a honey super on top and then the deep on the bottom. We're going to take a look and see what we have as far as a queen. Do a quick inspection. A little bit of weight to it, so we're definitely bringing in honey, which is a good sign. See some pollen on the legs of these bees. We're going to try to clean up some of this burr comb and hopefully locate a queen. She's definitely laying up in the few areas to the top, which means that she's definitely laying. There's little tiny larvae, one or two here and there on these burr comb. There's trouble with my smoker today. Take a look if we can find a queen or eggs. I thought I saw a little bit of larva in there, so that tells me we have a queen, just don't know where she's at or how she's looking. I'm really just going to try to find a frame with good brood on it, capped, just to get a sense as to how the colony is. Look for any queen cell concerns and such. Eggs, capped larva, I see here. She's got eggs all over the place on this frame, so she's laying. May or may not be marked, but I'm also looking for, yeah, she's doing pretty well. There's definitely eggs in this frame, pollen, nectar. I'll leave that to the side for a second. Pull out another one. My goal is not here to do a full inspection, although I might do a mock inspection, trying to get these, make sure there's no swarm cells, which I'm not seeing any queen cells right now. Lots of bees, lots of eggs, larvae, brood in all stages. Doing wonderful this early. It's been a nice colony. Looks like a lot of hatched out too, so they're constantly I'm just spying for the queen if I happen to see her. Being very cautious. This is a pretty strong colony too, going through the winter. There's nothing more to put my eyes on a queen, but it may or may not happen. And I'm okay with it. She's got brood all over the place, so she's definitely booming. We're probably gonna try to do a split here on a couple of these colonies soon. Good pollen frame. Great pollen frame. Very good pollen frame. Making sure that she's not on this frame before I set it down. You do not see her, but that's okay. We'll look at this last one. I did not see any queen cups. Did not see any queen cells. Lots of nectar in that outside frame. So, one quick thing I'm going to do is do a quick checkerboard, and I'm just going to flip this around. This gives her some room to lay. She usually lays in the center of the brood box, not on the outsides. So likely these empty frames are going to be a great spot for her to continue to lay. And that pollen frame that I just identified, which is this one right here, I'm going to move out. Just another way to, they call that checkerboarding. Lots of pollen on these things. There's pollen everywhere. Bringing it in. All right, let's get this back together here on the bottom. Scoot that over. Excuse me. You got this many bees in a box, you always want to be careful you don't squish a bee between the frames, because then they get mad and they start coming out and wanting to defend their colony, as most would. So I'm doing my best not to do that. Some nice little beginnings of a new nest. Putting them back in the middle. Tighten these frames up. Okay. Now that they're tightened up, I didn't see any signs of queen cells or anything like that, so they're going to go back on here. You always want to set your box on at an angle, pushing the bees so you don't squish that many bees. Maybe one or two, but that just helps. Alright, I'm going to take a quick glance in the middle here to see what they're doing with these frames. Something tells me that if there is any brood up here, the queen could be up here, but they may just be doing stores, which that's what I'm hopeful of. I see brood. Let's pull this one frame out of the middle and take a look. Okay, everyone see the brood there? So she's building her nest all the way up, and look at the hatching bee coming right out of there. So this was a while ago. At least 16 to 18 days, 21 days. Definitely this hive is booming. Big frame of brood to my right as well. Let's close her up and get this flow hive put back on top. We're gonna have a lot of bees here ready to do a lot of good work on this flow super, which makes me really excited. This year we might get a full. I'm not a big fan of 8-frame equipment. Some people are. I just have OCD, so I always think it's never centered enough. All right. With the flow hive, we're going to put, oh, forgot our queen excluder. Put our queen excluder on. Center it up. Okay, as you can see, we've got the flow hive set up here, and I don't know how well this back thing will come off anymore, but the bees will start to come up inside and work. The nectar see them in there working, coming up and working the nectar. They'll come up and we can watch them from this side as well. They're not up there yet, but they will be. All right, let's close the lid up and then we'll wrap this up. And another installment of Bohemia apiaries bees. We're trying to put together the flow hive for this is year 5 for the flow hive, really year 4 for putting it out, but let's hope that the bees work hard on getting it done this year, and we'll try out harvesting. We'll show how that works maybe later in the season. So thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate it. If you got comments below, if you tried a flow hive and you think that's something you liked, give us your comments below. If you don't, then don't put your negative comments. We like positive comments. We know that a lot of beekeepers don't like the flow hive, and honestly, this is not really beekeeping in the sense that traditional form. It's still beekeeping, just a little bit different. So I love to hear all of the opinions and check out new technologies and innovations. But for me, this is probably the only flow hive I'll ever own, and it's just fun to kind of learn more about the bees in a different way, keep them in different ways as well. Thanks for watching here at Bohemia Apiary, where beekeeping is definitely more than a hobby. It's an obsession.